Hey, it's Kristi Kandel, and I'm a real estate developer, investor, and I teach locals like you how to become a real estate developer in your own backyard.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owners Association, where real estate investors have found success since 1968. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 509. Most real estate investors stop short of becoming developers. But what if the next step in your journey isn't just buying another property? It's building something meaningful in your own backyard. Today, we're talking about how rental property owners can transition into local development, even without deep pockets or prior experience. Our guest is Kristi Kandel, a real estate developer and consultant with over $450 million in completed projects across retail, housing, clean energy, and more. She's now helping everyday investors take control of what gets built in their communities. Kristi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how that transition happened.
I actually grew up in a small town in Ohio, and after college, I moved to Florida and ended up working with a sign company who was putting up signs for CVS Pharmacy. And at the time, back in 2007, they were putting CVSs on every corner. And through that, I got to meet the developers who were building those and then building the residential and the shopping centers around them. So one day I just looked up at one of the developers and I said, hey, what's it take to be a developer? Thinking they would tell me to go back to school or go do something. And thankfully, they were a smaller company in the Tampa area. And they said, for us, if you're the right person, we'll teach you the business. It's like, great. When do I start? So thankfully, 3 weeks later, I did end up joining their company, and they had primarily worked as retail developers in the Southeast. And Family Dollar at the time, because it was 08, 09, they were like, hey, we don't have anything in California yet. Will you guys be our developer in California? So immediately, new person, I'm like, wait, we need to go learn and explore and open this new market. I'm the only person without a spouse and multiple kids. Sign me up. So I did end up going out and opening our Orange County, California office for them. And for the next 4 years, from 2010 to 14, from San Francisco down to San Diego, I was working on 40 or 30 ground up development deals a year. So from the time we got the dirt under contract, I came in and worked with the cities, did due diligence, entitlements, permitting, and even construction management. It was 60 to 80-hour weeks, but a whirlwind in the industry. And one day my mentor had looked at me and she said, Kristi, you've gotten a 30-year career worth of development over the past 4 years. I'm like, oh, have I? And the entrepreneur in me lit up and I was like, oh, okay. But then I still thought, okay, these are single tenant developments. So I actually ended up working with a developer in Newport Beach, and we did larger 5 to 30 acre shopping centers and industrial and residential, and quickly learned that if you know the process and the steps in development, then you can do development anywhere. So 2015, I ended up starting my own company, development and consulting, took the profits from that, invested into short-term, mid-term, and long-term rentals across the country. And about a year ago, started local real estate developers to help teach locals how to become the developer in their community.
What does it mean to be a developer? I mean, what are the processes and steps? Because I think a lot of people are just unfamiliar of what that even entails.
Development notoriously has been gatekept, and it's a matter of most people only do 5 to 10 projects in a whole career. So there's so many more experiences that go into that. But development really is finding the highest and best use for a piece of land. And then taking that and going, okay, we have this land that's situated here. If we rezone it to, say, commercial, we could then put in this shopping center and do X, Y, or Z. Or maybe it's taking a larger piece of land and subdividing it into different smaller lots. So maybe you could have a single family homes developed or townhomes or apartments, but taking that land and dividing it into smaller chunks so that way someone else can come in and do the vertical construction. So really, development at its core is finding the highest and best use for a piece of land.
Why don't you take us through, like, when you came back from California, and where are you now? Are you back in Ohio, or where are you actually developing at this point?
We do development projects nationwide, development, consulting, and investing. I personally split my time between Southwest Florida and Lake Tahoe. So I'm a reverse snowbird. May through December, I'm in Florida enjoying the outdoor weather and boating and volleyball. And in the winter, I'm snowboarding in Lake Tahoe.
So what kind of what is your focus now when it comes to development? What are you doing presently?
So my focus, after having spent a ton of time in the retail space, I really put a heavy emphasis once I started my company on clean energy. So we, for about a 10-year run, worked and built hydrogen fueling stations in California, and also the supply chain that supported that from there. We're also working with all sorts of other clean energy initiatives around hydrogen and natural gas to try and come up with alternatives. Outside of that, we're looking into different deals for LIHTC or affordable housing projects, but also just smaller infill to where you can build the tiny homes, or just infill lots and increasing the density. So housing being another component. And another one that we're focusing on is taking larger lots and then rezoning them and or subdividing them. So that way the locals in the community can then take those smaller parcels and become the developer and then build those out.
How do local investors become developers in their community? But you also mentioned something that is very interesting to me, which is clean energy and the development you're doing there. So let's talk about that just for a little bit. I mean, when you say clean energy projects, and you mentioned the hydrogen fueling stations, what do you know about clean energy that most people don't? And how important is that niche to be in right now?
It's very much in the early stages of R&D. We ended up back in 2015 actually getting connected with the founders of a hydrogen company who is the largest operator in the United States. And they were testing out with the state of California, building the hydrogen fueling stations for the hydrogen powered cars. So today we have maybe 60 hydrogen fueling stations open, and think just like a gas station, that's what they look like. Your car rolls up, you fill it with hydrogen instead of gas. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. And so that was the proof of concept. Long term, though, hydrogen is probably meant more for heavy duty trucking. And so that's where we evolved into working with them to entitle and permit new locations to build out the actual supply chain for that. So as we're trucking in or creating hydrogen, we're bringing in to different hubs that are then filling up the trailers that will go to the gas stations themselves. Which that in itself, I absolutely love a challenge, and educating fire departments and building departments and planning departments in the local community, and letting them know that hydrogen doesn't just mean big and scary and boom. It actually is just as safe as the propane and gasoline at gas stations that we think of today with the different safety protocols. So that was a really fun program to be part of. We touched every aspect, from working with the state of California and grants to working with venture capital and players all over the world, and understanding how those markets go. And then also the carbon credits, to where you have your polluters of the world who have to buy the carbon credits. So then there's a whole nother market on not just what you're selling of hydrogen, but also you're selling those credits. So there were lots of nuances and good things around that. And we need to have more innovation and to test it, to then figure out where should all of this land and how will transportation happen in the future?
Do you think it's going to get to scale anytime soon, where we'll see this in communities all across the country? Or is it one of those things that, it needs the funding, but maybe that funding is not quite there right now?
It needs the funding. There's also some efficiencies that need to be figured out in general. I don't think it's going to be the future for light duty vehicles. I think we have other options that do work. I do think it is the solution for semis, boats, and even airplanes. It could be. There's some technology that has to happen to get us to where we're truly to clean hydrogen. But there's so many cool startups, and that's another thing. Once you're in hydrogen, we're working with a lot of different companies in the Bay Area that are more in startup and R&D mode, and it's really fun to help them go permit and entitle their locations to test it out, because then you get to see, oh, this is how you guys are using it. So like Bloom Energy and their fuel cells, they came into Home Depots and they took them off the grid by putting in fuel cells and solar. And so there's just, it's fun to see the early stages. We're still a ways out. Funding still is it's still a challenge because the grants can only cover so much to get to proof of concepts, but to get it to an actual marketable strategy that works, it's still a ways out.
Well, let's switch gears back to local investors getting into development in their areas. This is something you talk about, about what's the resistance you encounter from people who are like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And what do you say to convince them, hey, this is a good idea. You might want to consider it.
The biggest challenge we have is that it's been gatekept for so long that we don't even think that someone like us can go do it. And just in general, we have over 16,000 cities in the United States that have a population of 10,000 people or less. That means if you can go flip that house down the street, you can take that commercial building and you can flip it and put a couple tenants in the bottom. You can run Airbnb or rentals above. And now instead of impacting one family and one life from that rental that you flipped, now you've taken a commercial building and brought it back to life and supported your community. So I think it's really, a lot of it is mindset and belief and just going, wait, I can do that. And then what we find in those, and I grew up in a small town of 2,500 people in Ohio. So I know small towns, we know everyone. And the city manager is probably someone that you know, or your parents know, or your sister knows. Same with the city council. And you all are choosing to live in that community for a reason. And everyone wants places that they want to live, that they want to work, that they want to play. And you are uniquely qualified as the local to know what's missing. To go, oh, it'd be great if we had a daycare right here. Oh, it'd be great if we had this cool beer garden and outdoor like sauna yoga area. So I honestly, it's a lot of it is just belief. And then the people who are closest are the people who are already investing into, maybe you're managing a short-term rental. You're already running a business as well as owning a property. Maybe you're flipping properties. It's all the same steps that you would take for that. It's just making sure you do them in the right order, and it's over a longer period of time.
When you talk about development, what comes to my mind first is you're going to build something ground up. But what you just described is more like let's take something that's already there and repurpose it, make it something else that is going to be, more to its highest and best use. Is that how you're considering development for this conversation?
It can be both. Adaptive reuse is probably the biggest one. If we all think of our downtowns or some of the older aging buildings we go past, that's the fastest way you can get something online, and honestly, probably the cheapest way you can get something online and really kind of get your feet wet and leverage. There's lots of grants and different incentives that are out there in the communities to help repurpose and revitalize existing buildings. So when I'm trying to get people into it, it's how do we take that low-hanging fruit? You can evolve into bigger ground up projects and build things as your next ones. But what's that fastest, easiest, lowest hanging fruit that you can get in and go, oh, I like this, or no, I don't like it. I don't want to do it again.
Take us through an example of a project that you were involved in where you went from, okay, this building is interesting. It could be something else. Let's go in there, talk to the decision makers or the stakeholders, and let's figure out how to do that. What happened?
We actually had Len, who up in Hancock, Michigan, they had gone to college in that community and went out west and then ended up coming back home. And they're like, you know what, we're going to reinvest into our community. And they weren't sure exactly what. And we started talking, and they had identified a property along the waterfront. And they said, wow, this used to be a restaurant. The prior owner was trying to repurpose it. And then things happened, COVID happened, health issues. And so it kind of got tabled and it just sat there vacant on prime waterfront property. And they said, we were tossing around ideas, and they said, well, since we have you in our pocket to ask questions, and when we hit road bumps and things, we're going to just do it. So they ended up getting that property under contract and split it up into phases. And that's a big thing, that when you're doing your first project, you don't have to build out all the phases at once. Do it to where you can quickly get something online generating revenue, and then you can build the future phases. So through that, they ended up meeting with the city manager and with Michigan Economic Development Corporation and with different people in the community, and tossed around ideas of what does the community need? What would the community support? And so their phase one ended up being the saunas saunas and the cold plunges. And so they were able to get that online and were able to start getting the buzz and draw people to the waterfront. And I actually came there right before they ended up opening their beer garden next door. And it was so cool because in the winter they have all the snowmobiles coming by and they're like, oh, wow, like there's a new place to hang out now. And then they were able to open phase 2, which is an awesome beer garden, indoor, outdoor, also an event space, which was missing in the community. And now they're constantly throwing events and having morning yoga and having different runs. And it's such prime real estate. And then because of that, the city then invested and they build out the docks that are right in front of the property. And they're like, oh, well, now that there's somewhere to go, the city applied for a grant and they were able to put in the docks in front of the property. So, and there's a couple more phases and things that are happening both on the public side and the private side, just as a result of them going, hey, let's take this property. Let's turn it into something cool and different and just watch the momentum and everything spiral from there.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Kristi at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Kristi at rcbassociatesllc.com. I'd love it if you could dig into a little bit more as to like, who do you go to? Like this group, they had an idea. You were obviously coaching them or mentoring them, and they were able to talk it through with you. But then you mentioned the MEDC, Michigan Economic Development Commission, and then the local city planner. Like, who are the people or the groups that you should reach out to when you're considering doing this type of project?
On the private side, we like to say your 5 strategic partners, and that's your architects, your engineers, your brokers, your lenders, and your contractors. Those are going to be the key people that help you get it across. For this project specifically, from a lender standpoint, and honestly, for any development, your regional banks are going to, and your regional lenders are going to be your best bet. They're big enough to have the capacity to fund your deal, and they're not too big to where the Wells Fargos, the Chases just ignore you or give you rates that aren't favorable. So that having that lender from the beginning and talking to them and each of these partners, what I really stress is development is relationships. And the more you can build a deep relationship with them before you even have a deal, like, hey, here's me, I'm in this community, here's what I'm trying to do right now, build the relationship with them and the rapport, because they don't have a job unless you do a development. So they actually need you just as much as you need them, but this is all relationship based. So working with the lender early so they're on board, because they're going to pitch their deal to their committee. And even though it is about the numbers, it's also about their confidence in you. Are you going to deliver with your team around you? So that's key. Contractors, they're going to be the ones who are actually building this and bringing this to life, whether it's a retrofit or ground up. So those are key to know who specializes in the exact type in your community. Architects and engineers, if you're taking an existing building, you probably won't need an engineer, but you will need an architect. Maybe you're putting a different facade on the front, and maybe they're going to help you navigate the city process. So having that architect to lean on. Also attorneys, so maybe you need an ABC license to serve liquor. Maybe you just want that attorney to help you negotiate the purchase and sale agreement, different things. So having that whole list of private sector. And then on the public sector, yeah, go talk to your city managers, talk to your planning commissioners, talk to your city council. It was actually in the same community from this project and I've been up there several times, just meeting the local leaders and stakeholders in the business incubator, that we ended up hosting a 4-part workshop series to help find and empower the local aspiring developers. So we brought everyone into the room. We brought the city members, we brought the lenders, we brought the architects, we brought the locals into the same room. And the best part is you had 2 city managers for Hancock and Houghton up there going, please don't buy a property and then come talk to us. Just come talk to us first. We'll tell you if the baby's ugly or not. Okay, can you do your project or not? From the beginning, for free, we want to help you, but we can only do so much if you've already bought it. So it just goes to prove how in smaller communities, it's not like our major cities. You really can do it, and you're not fighting your community leaders. They literally are looking for people like you to come do it, and they will help you and they will hold your hand through the process. And then groups like MEDC and different housing authorities that were local to the community, they are equally as trying to help you. They know what grants and incentives are out there, so they can help you from the beginning structure your project so you qualify for them and to put your package together.
What are the 2, maybe 3 places they can start and have those conversations before they even start spending money or really get too deep into that path?
I'm a huge advocate of there's a ton that you can do yourself without spending a dime. So the first thing is you might have an idea. You might say, my town is missing X. Great. Go talk to a broker or an agent in your town and say, hey, if I build this, are there tenants who are going to lease this space and operate the business? If I build this, do we have the demand for someone who needs a 3-bedroom, 2-bath if we build, an 8 townhome project? So talk to the people who understand what's happening in the area. At the same time, if you have a property and you go, I keep driving past this lot, I really wish we would just turn it into this. Great. Go talk to the city, talk to the city manager, talk to the planning department and say, what is the zoning of this property? Can I do this? And start to figure out the nuances from there. With development, part of the reason people don't get into it is because it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 step process. You're a detective, it's a chess match, it's a poker game, it's everything wrapped into one, but there's so much that you can do as you're unpeeling the onion that you can do for free before you ever spend a dime. So you don't need to go buy the property, you don't need to go get a survey done. You can literally talk to the broker, talk to the city manager, and then from there, maybe you talk to a general contractor and say, I want to do this. What would the cost be just roughly per square foot? And all of these things are things that people will give you for free because they need the work. They don't get the work unless you go forward. So they're going to help you to navigate that.
Quite often when you're doing any change, you can get a lot of resistance from the neighbors and the community. Can you talk about that and how you meet that head on?
Number one thing that I talk to people about is when you figure out that you're going to do a project, and probably at that point after you have it in contract, you haven't purchased it yet, but you have it in contract, start talking to your neighbors. This is where a lot of times we have developer and we go, the big bad out of town guy who's coming in. Well, you're the local. So it's going to be a lot harder for them to dislike you when they go, oh, well, I went to school with your mom and I, babysat your brother. So talk to the neighbors, get them excited about it, because what we want, and think about you and your own community, we don't want development to happen to us. We want it to happen with us. So within reason, talk to your neighbors, tell them, get them excited, get them on board. If they do have opposition, truly listen and see, is this a legitimate opposition? Is there a way I can solve this? Maybe I throw in an extra bike rack or some screening shrubbery, or, maybe you give them something that doesn't cost you much, but shows that you care, because ultimately you're in this for the long run, because this is a community that you live in too. So you're all benefiting from this and you're all in it for the long game, not just for the short win.
And once you go through all of that, who do you actually find then to do the work, swing the hammers and make the change?
As you're The benefit of this, so let's take a flip. You buy a single family home that you're trying to flip, and you go, okay, I've got a contractor, we've got the permits, we're in and out in 3 to 6 weeks. Okay, well, all of those same steps are going to happen in development, only they're going to happen over 8 to 15 months in a smaller town. So you're talking to the contractor at the beginning when you're just getting his rough swag numbers, his ballpark. And then as you're going through entitlements and maybe you get the zoning approval and then you go through permits and you get the permit approval, you're still talking to those contractors. And what you're doing is you're figuring out who in your community builds that product, because who builds residential isn't going to be the same that builds commercial, isn't going to be the same that builds industrial. So you're going to figure out who's your go-to people. Smaller communities, you might only have 1 or 2 options. Larger, I would normally say bid to 5 people, but maybe you've got 2 or 3 who can build in your community. And then it just depends on what's their current workload, what's their bandwidth, are they in this deal, and you can potentially even mitigate your risk and bring them in as a partner. Maybe they're a partner in the deal and you can use their builder's line of credit to help you with the construction part of it. So it's talking to them all the way through to figure out what is best suited for you and your project. And then as you're going through each phase, keeping them aware of where you're at. Hey, here's the plans so they can get their subs all lined up. So it'll end up being your contractor. I do have some people who self-perform and they hire the subcontractors directly. Just know that just means you're doing more of the heavy lifting, but it's totally fine either way. It just depends on what's your skill set and what's your capacity.
Are there any other questions about development and the type of development you do that I should be asking you that I haven't asked you yet?
Development is just such a broad topic. And so there's so many questions that could be out there. So one thing I would say is I just literally try and put as much free information out there as possible. I truly believe in empowering our locals to make the difference in communities. So I have a podcast, a local real estate developer podcast. I have a free blueprint course that literally walks people through step by step, because I truly believe that it's our locals that are going to make the difference, and that we have over 16,000 communities with less than 10,000 people. You guys can do this. If you can flip a house, you can go flip that commercial building and you can make that impact and the ripple effect in your community.
How do people find out more about you, access some of the things you just mentioned?
You can either go to kristikandel.com or localrealestatedeveloper.com. Both will then share about the Local Real Estate Developer podcast. We have different episodes, and I purposely try not to have the massive developers on. I want it to be stories that you can relate to. We just had Cece on in her pod drop today, that just an incredible story of what she's done in Atlanta and what she's doing next. So yeah, just really trying to share the stories so people can relate and go take action. And then on localrealestatedeveloper.com, you'll see the different programs, and we do offer mentorship. So once people are going through a deal, if you just want to know that you've got someone that you can call and have by your side through that, we're there. But I also have a free blueprint course. It's the same one I used to train my team members for my company, but it takes you start to finish through and gives you a real roadmap so you can confidently go, okay, I think I do want to try this out.
What is your favorite hack or app?
I am in love with different AI features right now. I would say my 3 favorite are notebook.lm. So putting any contract, any document that you get into that, then asking it questions. It can't hallucinate. It literally only tells you what's in that document. So things that we used to pay a real estate attorney for, you can get that from there. And then I'll pin the AIs against each other and be like, well, notebook.lm came up with this. Perplexity, what do you think of this? And ChatGPT, what do you think of this? So those are the 3 that I use all the time. Perplexity Labs will do some deep research. So if you say, okay, I really want to understand this market in this area, perplexity.ai does a good job of that. And then also in the real estate realm, so with ChatGPT, and I post it on LinkedIn, and I try and, again, share as much as possible. But if you just want to evaluate a property, I put a prompt in on my LinkedIn that basically it will evaluate a property. What would have taken us 3 to 6 weeks in the past now pops out in 2 minutes, which is crazy awesome. A little scary, but crazy awesome to see. So just leveraging all the AIs as much as possible to just streamline what we're doing and to, again, not spend money until we have to spend money.
Was the last one ChatGPT that will assess the property and take 3 weeks worth of work and give you output? What are you feeding into it that you're getting the assessment?
I was working with a broker in San Francisco, and she's like, well, she's like this. I just got a text message about a 1 acre lot in West Hollywood that they want 50 million for. And she's like, I don't know if that's a good number or not. And I was like, well, let me play with ChatGPT after this and let me see. And basically I created a prompt from that, leveraging my experience to go, okay, here's all the things that we would want to know from, and what it came back with. Like, it talked about similar projects. It came up with the highest and best use, whether it was condos, luxury condos, or luxury hotel, the density, the pricing, the market rate, like, it was ridiculous what I came back at with. And I posted it on LinkedIn, so it's there, but getting the prompt right is what then generates the output. So the more time you spend, and you can go back and forth with it too and say, I want to create a prompt that does X, Y, and Z, and just keep working with it until you get it where it's at. You still need to proof the output, but it was crazy good to where within, 5 minutes after our call, I sent it over to her and she was able to quickly know, oh, I need to reach out to my condo developer. This is totally in his wheelhouse. And she didn't have to spend a dime. I didn't have to spend 3 to 6 weeks hunting it down. And if it turns into a deal, then great, we're going to work on it. And if it doesn't, then nobody spent all that time.
It's amazing how AI can just save you so much time and give you so much great information almost instantaneously. I do have to say, I've done those types of reports with ChatGPT. I've done them with Claude, and I pay for both. But I get the best detailed reports from Grok. Grok is amazing. I don't know if you've tried that yet.
I have not tried that one, mostly because I started on Chat and I have dumped so much information from our stuff into it that it's a heavy lift for me to move, but I have heard that it is probably the best at this point.
Kristi, this has been a real pleasure talking with you, and really enjoyed talking about hydrogen and what your experience there. But obviously the conversation focused on local development, investors really taking seriously the idea of developing in your own backyard. Let's repurpose some of these commercial buildings that are all over the country and could be put to a higher and better use. And I think you've made a good persuasive case for doing so. And if people want to reach out to you, we'll make sure we have all of your contact information in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.